Horror is subjective. You might personally be one of the 3.5 to 6.1% of people in the world that have arachnophobia, the fear of spiders. Me, personally, I don't mind them. Not exactly the biggest fan, but if one shows up in the house, I probably won't freak out. Tough as nails, me. There are hundreds of thousands of horror games on the market, some being much scarier than others. For every Garden of Banban, yes, this game is classed as a horror, there's a Silent Hill. But are these games scary anymore? Are we slowly toughening up and getting desensitized to the scary elements in these games, or are the games just simply failing at being scary in the first place? I'm going to be talking about a few different franchises in this video, but first... You thought I was going to have a sponsored segment? No, I have no sponsor. First, I want to talk about what makes games scary in my eyes. You might not necessarily agree with this, and that's totally fine. As I said at the start of the video, horror is subjective. To me, atmosphere is really the make or break of a horror game. Playing on the senses is a one-way ticket into a person's psyche. That's why so many people love going to haunted houses in the Halloween season. Take Alien Isolation, for example. That was a game that played on the fact that you're seemingly alone with your crew and only your crew in space, 39 light years away from Earth, and then you hear the xenomorph scuttling around in the distance, and you poop yourself because you thought it didn't hear you, but it did because the AI on that thing is absolutely insane. It progressively learns to counter your playstyle as the game goes on, making every playthrough unique and as scary as the first time you played it. It's a game of wits, and the xenomorph purposely puts you in uncomfortable positions that you didn't give a second thought because, initially, you thought that they'd be too outlandish and would never work. It also doesn't help that you're practically defenseless. In games similar to Alien, like Dead Space and, dare I say, the Callisto Protocol, you can outright just kill the horror with whatever kind of space blaster you have. Whilst doing the same thing to the xenomorph is the equivalent of me throwing a water balloon at you. You can do little to nothing about the horror except make it go away for a short while, but it will keep coming back, and that's what makes Alien Isolation still scary to this day. The sense of dread. This is until the game gets rid of the xenomorph and makes you fight synths for like 3 hours until the last act. It's kinda stupid, but it gets better. That's one of the huge flaws of horror games. Fighting the enemy head on and always coming out on top, because then you realize there wasn't any need to be scared in the first place. To emphasize this point, I'm going to talk about one of my favorite horror franchises, Resident Evil. When the game first came out in 1996, it was widely regarded as one of the best games of its time because it revolutionized the horror genre in gaming, using fixed camera angles to force players to approach the unknown whilst not throwing jump scare after jump scare at you. Running head-on into zombies that you didn't know were there was the game's way of creating a pseudo jump scare. Now, almost 30 years later, the game isn't scary anymore because it relies on jump scares that are so obvious that even an infant could predict them. Looking back on Resident Evil Village, the only part that you could argue is scary is the entire belladonna sequence and the baby part building up to it because A, it builds atmosphere so well, putting you in a situation where you can't defend yourself and all you can do is hide, and B, dolls. Lots and lots of dolls. Yeah, I really don't like dolls. Anyways, the game's not that scary anymore considering 2/3 of it is just shoot enemy die, crisis averted. There's no real big horror considering you kill it with ease. On the other side of the spectrum, you've got games where you don't defend yourself and you just survive, aptly named survival horrors. Alien Isolation is a survival horror, but that doesn't make it immediately good. The original Five Nights at Freddy's is a mascot survival horror, and whilst it was great back in 2014 because we hadn't seen anything like it, it's now the same rinse and repeat, survive until 6 AM or die. It was like this for God knows how many years until we got Help Wanted and Security Breach, so, I mean, the game isn't awful, it's a lot less hyped up now, but it's still a massive franchise that won't go anywhere. Wait, let me rewind a little bit. Mascot survival horror. Mascot horror. I guess I have to talk about the subgenre of horror games because they're super popular, especially here on YouTube. You got Poppy's Playtime, Garden of Banban, Choo Choo Charles, the list goes on. The general theme of these games is child mascot equals la bad and la evil, which is sometimes executed really well, but this is very rare. For every Kinito pet in Shipwreck 64, you have hundreds of Baldi's basics. It's such an overdone trope in horror that I hope stops soon because it's even creeping its way into Hollywood. Obviously the FNAF movie came out a few years ago, but we got Willy's Wonderland with Nicolas Cage and the Banana Splits movie. Both of those were good. Hell, you could kind of argue that Scream is somewhat turning into a pseudo-mascot horror, because the Ghostface Killer is an in-universe mascot from the Stab franchise. But the in-universe movies are based on the real events, so I don't know, it gets kind of confusing, and, you know, this might be a nothing argument. So, are horror games scary anymore? Well, it depends who you ask. I will say it one more time, very, very slowly, so it has a bit more emphasis on it. Horror is subjective. Whilst I might think games like Silent Hill and Darkwood are the peak of horror games, you might think Resident Evil is the scariest game ever made, and, you know, that's totally fine. I think games have definitely gotten less scary as time has gone on because the genre has slowly become oversaturated. Most new horror games follow the formula of everything was good, till it wasn't. Now you have to fight the bad thing. And it's getting boring and predictable. It's like when you watch a horror movie and you can tell that a jump scare is coming because the scene gets very dark and quiet and all you can hear is a character's breathing. Boo! That scared you. Congratulations. You now have to subscribe to me because you shat yourself at the sight of a kitten. Anyways, horror is a weird genre that's full of both great games and awful games. But you might think that some awful games are great, and you might think some great games are awful. As long as you agree that Garden of Banban is an absolute cinematic masterpiece, you're allowed to live. For now. God, that was fucking awful. Okay, so it's been a couple days since I recorded the bulk of this video. Yesterday was the PlayStation State of Play, and they showed off Silent Hill F. Yeah, pretty much everything I said in this video applies to Silent Hill F. It doesn't look that scary. It looks pretty cool. I might check it out. But as far as, like, being a horror game and, like, rah, yeah, it's not scary.